Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast. Today we are opening the door on the invisible automated gatekeepers of the modern workforce. We're talking about AI recruitment tools. I mean, it is 2026, and let's be honest, the way companies hire has just fundamentally changed. The days of a human sitting down with a stack of paper resumes and a lukewarm cup of coffee, that's ancient history.
It really is. We are living in a world where the first person to read your resume isn't a person at all, it's code. And while that shift has brought incredible speed, filtering thousands of applicants in seconds, it's also introduced this layer of complexity and risk that we are only just starting to wrap our heads around.
It's that eternal balance between efficiency and ethics, right? Everyone wants to hire faster, but nobody wants to accidentally build a discrimination machine. To help us navigate this, we're doing a deep dive into a really comprehensive resource. It's titled AI Hiring Bias, Ensuring Fairness in Algorithmic Recruitment Tools by Felix Römer. And this isn't just a technical paper, it's essentially a survival guide for professionals who want to use these tools without, accidentally breaking the law or losing their soul.
Or their best talent, honestly. Römer does a fantastic job of laying out not just the mechanics of these tools, the nuts and bolts, but the stakes. And the stakes are incredibly high right now.
Well, let's just look at the scale of this. The article hits us right away with a statistic that it stopped me in my tracks. It says that 98.4% of Fortune 500 firms are already using these automated systems. But it's not just the giants anymore. Adoption among non-Fortune companies it's skyrocketing towards 68%.
That saturation point is so critical to understand. If you're a job seeker in 2026, you are almost certainly being screened by an algorithm. We aren't talking about early adopters or, niche tech companies anymore. This is the standard operating procedure for the global economy.
Which means if these tools are broken,
the entire labor market is effectively broken. Exactly. Because these tools are ubiquitous, the glitches, if we can even call them that, they aren't just technical errors. In the eyes of the law, and I think increasingly in the eyes of society, those glitches are civil rights violations.
That is a massive shift in perspective. It's not, oops, the software bugged out. It's, oops, we just violated federal discrimination law.
Precisely. The legal landscape has shifted underneath our feet. We've moved from a move fast and break things era to a move fast, but if you break fairness, you will be sued era.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack exactly how these algorithms work, where they fail, sometimes spectacularly, and look at the strategic playbook Römer provides for using them without getting sued or losing your top talent.
Let's get into it.
I want to start with the core problem, algorithmic bias. I think for a lot of people, myself included, there's this lingering assumption that, math is neutral. It's code. It's binary. It doesn't have feelings or prejudices. So how can it be biased?
That is the neutrality myth, and it is one of the most dangerous misconceptions out there. The important thing to remember is that screening systems are, they're essentially mirrors. They mirror past choices. Yeah. If you train a system on 10 years of hiring data, and that data reflects a period where you mostly hired men from a specific university.
The system thinks that's the rule.
Right. The system doesn't see bias or sexism. It sees a pattern of success. It says, oh, successful employees usually look like this, and starts filtering for that pattern. It is quietly passing old patterns forward at scale.
So it's basically looking at the past and saying, do more of that, effectively automating the prejudices we had 10 years ago.
Exactly. And Römer breaks this down into 4 core forms of bias. Understanding the difference between them is really helpful for spotting where things go wrong because they aren't all the same.
Okay, let's unpack these one by one. What's the first one?
The first is representation bias. This happens when the training data, it leaves certain groups underseen. If your data set is 90% one demographic, the model literally does not learn how to evaluate the other 10% effectively.
It's like trying to teach a computer to recognize dogs, but you only show it pictures of golden retrievers.
That's a perfect analogy. When a chihuahua shows up, the system says, error. That's not a dog. In hiring, that chihuahua is a qualified candidate who just doesn't look like your historical hires. The model rejects them not because they aren't qualified, but because it doesn't know how to read them.
That makes sense. What about the second form?
That's algorithmic bias. This is a bit more technical. This is where the coded priorities themselves skew the scores. It's about how the math weighs different factors. If the algorithm is told to prioritize continuous years of experience above all else.
That sounds reasonable on paper. You want experienced people.
It does, until you realize that one demographic group, often women taking paternity leave or caregivers, historically has more gaps in employment. The algorithm creates a structural disadvantage based on how it weighs that specific variable. It's prioritizing continuity over capability.
Right. It's penalizing a life circumstance as if it were a lack of skill. Then we have predictive bias.
Yes, this is where the system systematically misestimates a group's future fit. It might predict that a certain group of candidates will have lower retention rates based on faulty correlations. For example, some early algorithms found that people with longer commutes quit sooner.
Okay, sounds logical.
But in many cities, commute length is heavily correlated with where you can afford to live, which is, correlated with race and socioeconomic status. So by filtering out long commutes, you are effectively filtering out minority candidates. The system predicts they won't stay, rejecting them based on a generalization rather than the individual.
That leads us to the last one, measurement bias. The critique we received mentioned we need to spend more time here because it's a bit abstract. How does this one actually work?
Measurement bias is particularly insidious because it's about errors in labeling or proxies. It happens when we pick something easy to measure and pretend it's the same as something that is hard to measure.
Can you give me a concrete example?
Sure. Let's say you want to hire intelligent people. Intelligence is hard to measure directly. So the algorithm uses quality of university as a proxy for intelligence.
Because if you went to an Ivy League, you must be smart.
That's the assumption. But in reality, access to Ivy League schools is often more correlated with parental wealth and legacy status than raw intelligence. So the tool thinks it's measuring smart, but it's actually measuring socioeconomic status. It measures the wrong thing, and in doing so, it warps the learning process.
That is a crucial distinction. It's optimizing for the wrong metric. Okay, so we have these 4 buckets of bias, but here is where it gets really interesting. I feel like the knee-jerk reaction for a lot of companies is, okay, we hear you. We'll just delete the race and gender columns from the spreadsheet. Problem solved. We call that masking. Does it work?
No, that is the masking fallacy.
Mm.
And Römer is definitive about this. Removing the label does not remove the bias.
But play devil's advocate for me here. If the computer doesn't know I'm a woman, literally doesn't have that data point, how can it discriminate against me?
Because of proxies. Identity leaks through everything. It leaks through your zip code. It leaks through the clubs you list on your resume. It leaks through word choice. The source material mentions a specific example where a model penalized the word women's, as in women's college or women's basketball team.
Wow. So even if the gender box is unchecked, the algorithm sees captain of the women's basketball team and subconsciously, or, well, computationally, downgrades the score.
Exactly. It found a pattern that correlated with the rejected pile in the past. We're also seeing tools that analyze intonation and vocabulary in video interviews. Those are heavily correlated with culture, background, and gender. The AI infers the protected trait even if you tried to hide it.
That is wild. It's like the AI is playing detective to find reasons to reject people based on the very things we told it to ignore.
And it's very, very good at it.
Let's look at the hard evidence here, because Römer cites a study from the University of Washington that honestly dropped my jaw. This wasn't just theoretical. They ran a massive simulation.
This is a crucial study because it isolates the variable. They generated 554 resumes that were identical in terms of skills, education, and experience. The only things they changed were the names associated with different racial groups. Then they ran them against over 550 job descriptions.
So same skills, same school, different name, and the numbers are shocking. White associated names were chosen in 85.1% of trials. Black associated names, just 8.6%.
That is a massive disparity. We aren't talking about a margin of error here. We're talking about a systemic wall. If you have a black associated name, the door is effectively locked 90% of the time.
And it gets worse when you look at the intersectional analysis.
This is a key point. Intersectional just means looking at how different identities overlap like race and gender together. What's fascinating here is that the harm wasn't distributed equally. When they looked at black men specifically, the harms were compounded. In some comparisons against white men, black men had a 0% preference rate.
0%.
Zero. That means in those specific scenarios, the algorithm literally never picked the resume with the black associated name over the white one. Not once.
That is chilling. It implies that for certain groups, the algorithm isn't just biased. It's an absolute barrier. It's not a hurdle. It's a closed door.
Right. And the study also found gender gaps men were consistently favored over women. But that intersectional point where race and gender overlap to create a unique, deepened disadvantage is something that simple audits often miss if they just look at race and gender separately.
So what does this all mean for the candidate? We have to emphasize that this is happening at the screening phase.
That's the most important part. This isn't about bombing the interview. This is about never getting the interview. These candidates are being filtered out before a human being ever lays eyes on their application. They are being rejected in the dark.
And that dark is where the legal risk is hiding. I want to transition to the legal landscape because the article makes it clear. Liability is expanding. It used to be that you could blame the vendor. You could say, hey, I just bought the software. Don't sue me. Sue the guys who built it.
That defense is dead. The shift in responsibility is real. Courts and regulators are making it clear that relying on a third-party tool does not protect an employer. If you use the tool, you own the outcome.
There is a key case mentioned in the text, Mobley v. Workday. Can you break that down for us?
This is a landmark case. The court found that the software itself could be considered an active participant in hiring decisions. This allowed discrimination claims to proceed not just against the employer, but involving the vendor's tool as a decision maker. It challenges the idea that software is just a passive calculator. It's an agent.
An active participant. That sounds like something out of a sci-fi legal drama, but it has real consequences. And then there was EOC v. iTutor Group.
Yes, this one focused on age discrimination. The algorithm was set up to automatically reject female applicants over 55 and male applicants over 60.
Just hard-coded rejection based on age.
Effectively, yes. They settled for $365,000. And that settlement shows that the EOC is watching. They aren't waiting for a human to confess to being ageist. If the data shows the machine is ageist, you pay.
And the expert in the article mentions this isn't just about jobs. This legal theory is spreading to housing and lending, referencing cases like Husky v. State Farm.
It is. Whether it's who gets a job, who gets a home, or who gets a loan, the underlying legal principle is the same. Disparate impact doctrine.
Disparate impact. Can you define that for our listeners?
Sure. It basically means intent doesn't matter. You can honestly say, I never intended to discriminate. The court doesn't care. If the outcome of your system disproportionately harms a protected group, you are liable. Good intentions do not fix bad data.
That brings us to the regulators. It seems like New York City and Colorado are leading the charge here.
They are the tip of the spear. New York City introduced the annual third-party audit mandate. If you are using these tools in NYC, you have to audit them for bias and publish the results.
But the article mentions a loophole. The infamous human-in-the-loop exemption. This sounds like a way to cheat the system.
Yes. The loophole. A lot of companies tried to get around the audit requirement by saying, oh, the AI doesn't make the decision. It just recommends it. A human makes the final call.
But in reality,
the human acts as a rubber stamp. They click approve 99% of the time because the machine told them to. Regulators are onto this. The source specifically warns listeners, do not rely on this label to avoid reporting. Regulators focus on outcomes, not the labels you slap on your process. If the human isn't critically reviewing the decision, the law treats it as an automated decision.
And then there's Colorado. Their rules for 2026 seem even more aggressive, specifically regarding appeal rights.
Colorado is setting a new standard. The new rules effective in 2026 include notice, consent, and this is the big one, appeal rights.
Appeal rights. So a candidate can say, hey, your bot rejected me, and I want a human to double check that.
Exactly. Candidates now have a path to challenge an automated rejection. Imagine the operational load that creates for a company if your system is rejecting thousands of people erroneously.
You'd be flooded with emails. That forces companies to actually document their process. You can't just say, computer says no.
Right. You have to map your processes against these local laws. You need documentation. You need to be able to show why the decision was made. If you can't explain it, you can't defend it.
This transitions perfectly to why it matters from a business perspective. Because, sure, getting sued is bad, but the host in me, the optimist, thinks there is a bigger business case here. If your tool is rejecting qualified black men at a 100% rate or screening out women, aren't you just shooting yourself in the foot?
You are. This is the talent loss argument. False negatives mean shrinking your talent pool.
Yeah.
You are literally paying a vendor money to accidentally delete qualified people from your pipeline. In a competitive market, that is business suicide.
And there's the reputational risk.
Huge. Fairness improves the candidate experience. If word gets out that your application portal is a black hole where resumes go to die based on bias, top talent will stop applying. In a competitive market, trust is a differentiator.
We also touched on automation bias earlier, the psychological risk, the idea that humans stop questioning the machine.
It's a very real psychological phenomenon. When a computer gives us a score, say, candidate match, 95%, our brains tend to shut off. We trust the precision of the number even if the data behind it is messy. The tool effectively sets the threshold, and the humans just rubber stamp it. That is where the danger lies.
So we've scared everyone sufficiently. We know the bias is real, we know the lawsuits are coming, and we know we're losing talent. Let's switch gears. Let's talk solutions. The article outlines a playbook for 2026. What is step one?
Step one is independent audits. And the key word is it's independent. Do not just trust the vendor when they say, our tool is bias-free. Of course they say that. They're trying to sell you the software.
It's like asking a student to grade their own exam. I got an A, I promise.
Exactly. You need to commission independent bias audits that test for measurable disparities. You need someone to look under the hood who doesn't have a vested interest in selling you the car.
Step two is data hygiene, which sounds like dental work, but I assume it's about cleaning up the input.
It goes back to the garbage in, garbage out problem. You need to rebalance your training sets. If your historical data is all white men, you need to actively feed the model diverse examples to teach it what other qualified candidates look like.
And the article mentions pairing big data with specific candidate context.
Right. It suggests using context to recognize non-standard paths. Maybe someone didn't go to an Ivy League school, but they have a specific certification or portfolio that is a strong predictor of success. You need to ensure the model values those alternative signals rather than just pedigree.
Step three seems to address that rubber stamp problem we talked about. Meaningful human oversight.
This is critical. You have to train your reviewers to challenge the recommendations.
Actually tell them to argue with the bot.
Yes, if the AI says reject, but the human sees something interesting, they should be encouraged to override it. And this is the compliance part. They need to create an audit trail. Document why the human overrode the AI. That documentation is your shield in court. It proves that the human was actually thinking, not just clicking.
And finally, step four, transparency and appeals.
Operationalize plain language notices. Don't hit candidates with 10 pages of legalese. Tell them, we use AI to help sort applications. And give them a way to request a human review.
It sounds like a lot of work, but compared to a class action lawsuit, it sounds like a bargain.
It is. And honestly, it's just good business. Treating people fairly shouldn't be a compliance exercise. It should be the core of your HR strategy.
So let's wrap this up. We've covered a lot of ground today. Automation, AI recruitment, it's here. It's 98% of the Fortune 500. It saves time. But without oversight, it creates liability and unfairness.
The summary is pretty simple. Automation is a tool, not a replacement for judgment.
And as we look forward, beyond 2026, what is the final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the goal isn't to stop using AI. We can't put the genie back in the bottle. But we need to stop treating it as a magic box and start treating it as an active participant that needs constant supervision. The future of work requires decisions that are traceable, testable, and fair. If you can't trace it and you can't test it, you shouldn't use it.
That is a powerful standard. Traceable, testable, and fair. I want to leave you, the listener, with one provocative question to mull over as you go about your day. If a candidate walked into your office right now and asked, why did your AI reject me today? Could you actually explain it? Not the algorithm said so, but the actual why. If the answer is no, you might have some work to do.
A very uncomfortable question, but a necessary one.
Huge thanks to you for tuning into the SmartKeys podcast. We hope this deep dive gave you some clarity on the invisible machinery of hiring.
It was a pleasure to break this down.
If you want to keep up with the future of work and get more insights like this, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And if you want to see the full data, the charts, and the AI talent acquisition guide we mentioned, the link to Felix Römer's full article is right there in the show notes. Definitely worth a read.
Absolutely. Go check it out.
Until next time, stay curious and keep learning. Bye for now.